Hey guys, welcome to Lunatic Astrology. I'm Lori Lothian, and today we're talking a little bit about Donald Trump and the astrology of the cycle he's currently in, which could portend him not winning the election, just one of many variables, but I think it's important and has to do with his zodiacal releasing. I'm also going to draw from one of my 33 names that enter my contest for the jewelry by Spangly Jewelry, and they win a pair of beautiful earrings to be shipped anywhere in the world. Moon Bathed Crystal by Spangly, and it's her Loon Artistic Collection. I'll put a link down below to her Etsy website. She's a friend of mine, should you want to take a look at her amazing jewelry. I have some of her pieces myself. So thank you to all 33 of you who entered the contest. That's amazing. I'm really glad that people jumped ahead and went into it. Okay, so let's start off with Donald Trump, and at the very end I'll do the draw, and the winner will be sent an email to let them know. So I have my printouts here, because I'm the girl who likes to look at paper, but this is very short. I could go on forever. I just want to talk about zodiacal releasing. It's a Hellenistic technique to progress the lot of spirit, or the lot of fortune, or the part of fortune. You could say it's the same thing: lot of fortune, part of fortune, or part of spirit, or part of Eros, or lot of Eros, same words. Mathematical points in the chart derived by formulas and variable depending on if you're born at night or at the daytime. So these simple formulas locate a mathematical position on your natal chart that represents where, when you were born, the lot of fortune, which is literally where you're likely to experience that up and down of the wheel of fortune, ill and good fortune in your life, and the lot of spirit, which is a lot more aligned with what happens in the circumstances of your life, particularly around career or expression of your life's purpose, etc., variables and circumstances in your life. Whereas the part of fortune is kind of like wacky luck that hits you, or wacky, weird, bad luck that hits you. And I still think everything's all intertwined, but it's got a more quality of sort of out of the blue, or less expected, I suppose, than the lot of spirit, which is more embedded within the context of the matrix of who you are as a soul and what it is you've come here to accomplish, and so the circumstances that surround you in that regard. So in that way, we're going to look at Donald Trump and see what's going on with his lot of spirit, his lot of fortune. And one of the things that happens is when a lot of spirit or fortune in this mathematical progression through the natal chart, and it's variable, like a lot of spirit could spend, or fortune, either one, will spend something like 30 days in the sign of Aquarius and might zip through 30 years in one sign and zip through another in a matter of 9 or 10 years. So we can't, it's not a predictable formula, like a year per a degree or anything like that. If you want to learn more about zodiacal releasing, there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of people teaching it in Hellenistic astrology. So just check out Chris Brennan, and he's got a lot of material on his podcast, The Astrology School, about that. So I've looked at my zodiacal releasing over the course of my life. It's been extraordinarily accurate. I've been using it with clients over the last few months to help them delineate times in their life where they've had turning points, particularly significant ones as, like trajectory changes. So for Donald Trump, he's got some trajectory changing, circumstantial changes in his lot. So first off, when a lot of any kind changes sign, and in Hellenistic astrology, therefore changes house within the natal chart, and there are 12 houses in the natal chart, so 12 places in the chart that it could be happening to reside in as we get older from our natal position, there's always something big that happens when there's a changeover into a new sign. Same when we just have like an ingress of a planet, the movement of a planet into a new sign, like Uranus and Taurus recently. We experience a lot of intensity around the turning point, the change point from one sign, or in Hellenistic tradition, signs and houses are equivalent, one house to the other. And so Donald Trump is interestingly having a couple of interesting turning points. Now, one, his lot of spirit. So we must think of that in a kind of a short form at this point, at the lot of his career, or the arc of his mission success story as it applies to his work or avocation or vocation. So this case is vocation. So he's a president of the United States currently. And his lot of spirit on July 10th, 2000 and what year? Oh, I should have written that down. Where did it go? This is a lot of spirit. Here we go. What was I looking at? I can't find it. I'm gonna find it because he's got a lot of spirit and a lot of arrows. I mean, a lot of fortune change that I think is significant and does not bode well for his re-election. So perhaps it was a lot of fortune I was looking at this morning. Yay, a lot of fortune. Yay, I got it. I love how I do not do retakes, guys. I do not do retakes. You get me straight up in my total, like, moment, of za. Here we go. So on June the 1st, 2018, his lot of spirit changed signs. Now, in middle of summer last year, 2018, his lot of fortune, moved into the sign of Scorpio. And in that movement, it'll be there until 2033. It left behind where it used to live in Libra from July 13th, 2010 to June 1st, 2018. It was in his third house in Libra. So there's a whole different qualitative energy to the third house, right? Writing, communicating. In fact, that was probably during the time that the lot 2010 to 2018 was in his third house of writing, speaking, and communicating, one of the many meanings of the natal third house, in the sign of Libra, Venus, so the diva. He was probably doing all of his apprentice shows, right? This was his like rise to male divahood, and so that kind of makes sense. But then there was a turning of the lot into a new area in 2018. Now he was already the president, so he ascended to the presidency while the lot was in the Venus-ruled third house of his natal chart. And in his natal third house, as I look at his paperwork, in his natal third house he has Neptune residing, and in whole sign astrology in the sign of Libra. And it's interesting because Neptune is like Neptune can give him the ability to put a glamour on as he communicates. So rose-colored, we could wear the rose-colored glasses and he could put on the sort of the foggy miasma of a false promise, or the charismatic glamour of his presentation as a third house individual, writing, speaking, or communicating to the world. And he did. He got elected president. Whether or not we believe it was because of that or because of the Russian interference, let's not argue. The thing is, he got elected. But a lot of spirit and a lot of fortune has moved into his natal fourth house. And it went into his natal fourth house on the date that I gave you. I probably shouldn't do a video after the end of a day, but anyway, June 1st, 2018. So last summer in 2018, I believe that's when the heat really started to hit with the Mueller report and the calls for that report to be produced. And then, we kept hearing of people being called in to testify to the grand jury. And that was really the beginning of the real heat on his presidency. Now, why I think that time that the lot of fortune is in his natal fourth house, one of the angular houses of his natal chart, is going to lead to his downfall is a couple of things. The angular houses, 1, 7, 4, and 10, like a cross, they tend to be where things really happen. Like it's almost, I always like thinking of it like a water wheel. And when planets are going through that house, those houses, or things are happening by progression through those houses, it's like the whole wheel begins to turn, meaning the wheel of one's destiny, actions, things happen, circumstances change. So he's got Chiron sitting in the very beginning of his fourth house in Mars, ruled by Mars. Now, Chiron is the wounded healer, right? But it's that kind of energetic Achilles heel, because Chiron was wounded and couldn't heal himself. And so what is it that Trump cannot heal from in this case that's going to take him down, and so that he will no longer be president? And I do think that's going to happen. I will predict that he won't be elected next year, if he even gets as far as the election. But that Chiron is in a relationship to his natal Uranus. And so I kind of wonder, I mean, this is kind of it's an aversion. So in a Hellenistic astrology, it doesn't count, but it's in conjunct or quincunx energy to the 11th house. And I kind of think it's like peripheral vision. I think anything that's in an inconjunct or quincunx relationship to another house in the chart is where we get blindsided and we can't see something coming. And it suggests to me that he won't see something coming at him, or he won't be able to foretell or predict or hunker down to get out of its way. That's kind of how I'm looking at that Chiron 11th house axis. And he's got a lot of stuff in his 11th house, including Venus. And so maybe in a way we don't see, he'll get blindsided by a woman. I'm going to say that. Blindsided by a woman, and somehow that event or that information given out by a woman brings him down. Uranian energy, sudden, sudden action, sudden unexpected left fielder action. So his natal Uranus, sitting up there in Gemini in his 11th house. So the other movement that's significant, and I think suggests perhaps that he will have something occur that kiboshes his chances at re-election, is that his lot of spirit, so we're going to think of this more as his life's purpose. I was talking about the lot of fortune before that. This is more like his career or his purpose or his mission. He basically is at a time in his life where between 2008 and 2038, that lot of spirit is traveling slowly through the sign of Aquarius in his natal chart, which in his whole sign system natal chart is the 7th house. And the 7th house is not just marriage and long-term relationship, it's also the house of publicity. It's where we have our Andy Warhol 15 minutes. It's where the spotlight's on us, on the sort of on that kind of public relations, publicity energy. And so in that sense, the lot of spirit is likely going to be giving him some kind of trouble in the summer of 2020. And what I'm looking at is August the 6th, 2020 to September 5th, 2020, he has a loosening of the bond of the lot of spirit, which is basically, the Hellenistic interpretations vary. I've been seeing it in my clients' lives as kind of a complete turning, 180-degree turning points when I watch their lots have these loosening of the bonds. And I feel like it's karmic unwindings or karmic comeuppance, karmic blessings or karmic curses. That's how I'm interpreting it, just because of the way it seems to happen in the lives of my clients. And all upsets are setups, all downfalls are chances to get back up. So even when it comes through as a harsh event and I have it with a client and I'm telling them about this could possibly be that, or we look back in their past and it was that, I always want to remind people that there's nothing that happens to us. It all happens for us. But for Donald Trump, August 6, 2020 to September 5th, 2020, something is happening, okay? That LB is happening. And so that's happening for him in the sign of Pisces. And there's so much I could say about his chart and the downfall, but these are just simple zodiacal pointers. Pisces is the 8th house of death. So in the 8th house of death, the Hellenistic 8th house of death, where he has no planets residing, which is ruled by, in his chart, Jupiter, because it is in the sign of Pisces, there is a possibility that something's going to happen in that late summer before the election. Now, I'm not suggesting he's going to die. I would never predict that for somebody. But, as the lot of fortune is going into his 4th house where Jupiter resides, and then the lot of spirit is having an LB moment in the August to September timeframe of 2020 before the election in Jupiter's territory, there's some serious Jupiter bolts happening here. Jupiter's always a great benefic, lucky opportunities and blessings, yada, yada, yada. But Zeus of Mount Olympus, upon whom Jupiter is named, was not always a nice guy. He was known to throw lightning bolts around, or bolts of and do nasty things, like try to rape somebody and that didn't work out, turn them into a monster or whatever. He's not all like love and light. I like the series by Neil Gaiman, American Gods. If you haven't seen it, I read the book years ago. It's a classic. But you'll see Odin, this kind of supposed, deity of enlightenment and who hung on the world tree and got the runes and, being basically an asshole, because Odin is not just a good guy, nor is Jupiter. But in this case, in Donald Trump's case, mostly I'd say Jupiter has been quite benevolent toward him in his life. But Jupiter is in the house of Mars in his natal chart. It exists in Scorpio, which is Mars's territory. And what does Mars like to do? Sever, cut, okay? Warrior, sword. So he's kind of beholden, that Jupiter, to Mars in a lot of ways, and Mars is the boss of him, as they would say, which is kind of why we see that Mars at the top of the chart in the 10th house of Donald Trump conjunct his MC, because he literally wants to be a soldier. He got, some reason he couldn't go to Vietnam, he wants to be a commander-in-chief, which he is, right? Mars on the MC in the 10th house. Instead of being the soldier on the ground, he gets to be the boisterous, buffoonish commander-in-chief of the United States Army. and Navy and Air Force is a scary, and Space Force, scary thought. But where I'm going with that is that Mars rules his fourth house, where the lot of fortune has gone into in 2018, changing his fortunes. They're on the way out, June of 18. And that Jupiter is also the house lord of the lot of the LB, the loosening of the bond period of August 6, 2020 to September 5th, 2020. Very precarious month for him, where something is likely to occur that is kind of like metaphorically the death of him, right? The death of his candidacy, or the chances of him winning. So stay tuned to see what happens when that happens, and we'll figure it out. And and in his natal chart, Mars is in a opposition to Jupiter. So not only is Jupiter in the house of Mars, which is a difficult placement for such a gregarious and generous Jupiter energy, but Mars is opposing his natal Jupiter in that fourth house, and literally, already, drawing his, his weapon at that Jupiter in the fourth. So Donald Trump's own martial impulse to be like the bully, and to be like the king of the castle, and to be the soldier who never went to war but tells everyone else where to go, by being a commander-in-chief, is going to be part of that downfall structure, with that changing of the lot, moving into his natal fourth house, with the loosening of the bond happening in his eighth house of death in the August to September of 2020. Those are enough for me to pretty well guarantee that he will not be elected as the next president of the United States. I'm kind of liking Elizabeth Warren lately, but I'm a Canadian, so I don't get to say. And I'm liking Mayor Pete as well. If I was voting for you guys, I'd have them as a tag team, guy and girl, president, vice president. And of course, we want a woman president, right? All around the world, we want finally a female U.S. president. Sanity. All right, so that's it. Thank you for listening. Now I'm going to do the draw. Here's the draw. Okay, it's the end of the day here. Wow, the light's kind of weird. I'm standing up. That's my window there. I'm going for the good lighting. And I'm going to do a random number generator. So 33 people put their name in the draw for the earrings, and I'm going to hit the random number generator. And I can't read the names from an autoresponder. They're too small on the page for me to read. And it is lucky number 14. You are the winner of Spangly Jewelry. You'll get an email from me, and everybody who entered the contest draw will also get an email from me as well. So all 33 of you, stay tuned. Number 14, you are the lucky winner. And I thought it would be kind of fun, hang in there with me, to draw an oracle card from a deck that I've had for years. I swear, I love this deck. The Druid Animal Oracle. I got this in 1991 when I lived in Washington, D.C. in Friendship Heights. And I remember playing with this deck, and I was enchanted with it. And it's always stayed with me. I've never gotten rid of it. All the moves I've made all through these years. So this is a card that I'm choosing right now to represent how this full moon that is being recorded today can unfold in the highest good for everybody who's tuned into the highest potentialities. My last video, I called it Mayhem and Miracles, because I do believe it heralds both for all of us in the next 2 weeks. Watch out for that Persian Gulf thing. Mike Pompeo got on Fox News and tried to make a PR spin case about the Iran interference in the Gulf. And what you can see he's doing is trying to prepare the ground for an announcement of sending a lot of troops there and beginning an escalation. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but you can see it's so see-through what they're up to. All right, and the card is Fire Dragon. Woo! That is also very Martian, and we're like the fire, right? We're in a time where we're all experiencing that intense energy of the Mars-Saturn opposition. Oh my goodness. That's Mars in the North Node opposing, that Saturn-Pluto South Node pile-up in Capricorn. So the keywords of that Fire Dragon are transmutation, mastery, and energy. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So what do you need to transmute in your life now with the help of this full moon over the next 2 weeks to take something further? What do you need to master? And what kind of energy are you going to bring to bear in your own life? I hope that is inspiring and makes some sense to you. Please like, please subscribe, please hit the bell if you want to get notifications. And please comment. And if you're an astrologer, I'd really love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from other people and what they're thinking about these days astrologically as it applies to current events. Anyway, I respond to all my comments with a heart or a comment back. Thank you guys. Mwah.